So the first question is just about, you've chosen the campus as the concourse as your favorite spot on campus that most represents you, and can you just expand on that a little bit?
I think it's because it's a central location. For me, a lot of it was when I was trying to think of where I wanted to be on campus for the interview. A whole bunch of places went through my mind. Somewhere in residence, maybe in WLUSU, spent a lot of time there. Just any number of academic areas. But I just sort of fell back to this idea. I spent so much time in here writing papers, spent so much time in here talking to friends and passing time, and just wandering around even, that concourse made the most sense.
Okay. And just more about the role of president. What are the roles and limitations of WLUSU president, and how does this factor into the promises you make on your platform?
I think one of the big limitations is that when you look at an organization like the Students' Union, you have a massive amount of turnover, particularly at the highest level. So you have a president who has a one-year term. In many cases, does not have a lot of experience building up to that position, and then they're expected to all of a sudden try and introduce a whole whack of change. They're going to be doing it over a 4-month period where there's going to be a lot of conferences, and you've got the summer months, and it sort of always feels like a transition period. And then before you know it, you're into September, you've got all the students here, and then you're getting ready for elections, and all of a sudden your successor's elected before you know it. So I think that you're dealing with a massive curve, and sometimes an experience of that. So for me personally, I don't think that I have that, just because of so many years in the Students' Union. I feel like I know what I'm getting into, I feel like I know what the role is expecting. So you have already pre-existing relationships with all the staff, have a firm knowledge of what the role requires, and a firm knowledge of the Students' Union, and what to expect over that transition period. So I feel like I can get in and hit the ground running.
Okay, great. Aside from the goal of representing and serving students, why do you want to be president?
For me, the final decision factor came down to, I was looking around the campus one day, and I just felt like there was still a lot of things that could and needed to be changed. This is my last year as a student, and it just didn't seem right to sort of say, all right, well, there's things that aren't right, but I'm going to leave. I've gotten a lot from Laurier. I've met some amazing people, and I feel like it's really changed who I am, my outlook on life, my values, and I just felt like it would be selfish to say that I'm just going to leave and not try and fix things, and not try and make it better for people who haven't come, who still have a few years to go, and for people who are looking at the university as sort of their future, because I know the impact it can have, and I want it to be a good one.
What is your most ambitious goal on your platform?
I think my most ambitious goal is probably one that isn't perfectly and clearly articulated, which is just basically refocusing the Students' Union back to very basic representation of the student opinion. And I've tried to articulate that in what my goals are. Things that are not grandiose, things that are not huge, that they're small, but that they affect every single day on the campus for almost every single student. And that's what I think the Students' Union should be focused on. It shouldn't be concerned about all of the minutiae of the Fred Nichols Campus Center and what's happening there. It should be focused on, I'm in the concourse and can't get wireless internet, or I have to pay a bill, but I can't figure out what scholarships, awards, and bursaries I qualify for. These minor issues that really have a significant impact on the students. And that's why, for me, it's about refocusing and realigning the values and the mission back to that simple providing for the needs of students.
And what is the biggest issue on campus?
Well, there's big issues in student life, there's big issues academically. I don't know if I would say that there is one major issue. I think it would be pretty nebulous if you narrowed it down to that. Were I to do it, I'd say it's value. We're paying a lot of money to be here as students, and you have to ask yourself, what am I getting from that? And I think that's a really fair question. There's the potential for tuition to raise. In fact, it will raise. And what are we going to get out of that as a result? Is that just going to go straight into the gap in the teacher pensions fund? Is that going to go into bigger classes? Is that going to go into more opportunities? Is that going to go into the SLC? I mean, right now it's not. So we have to ask ourselves, what do we care about in terms of value for our tuition dollars?
How would you ensure WLUSU's spending is in line with students' best interests?
Well, I think that the first thing you got to do is talk to students and actually clearly articulate what their interests are. I don't think that anyone ever gets involved in the Students' Union maliciously. I think that sometimes what happens is we get a little bit lost in what can otherwise happen. You meet some great people, you get to go on some amazing learning opportunities, and sometimes you kind of lose sight of that. Well, I'm here for the students, though. I mean, I take this terrace renovation as kind of the perfect example. We spent $1.5 million to expand the terrace, and we haven't, as yet, dealt with any of the top concerns of what the terrace, what students have with the terrace. That's where I think your problems are. If you're going to spend that kind of money on something, surely you want to deal with any one of the students' top concerns. So for me, it just has to deal with that, again, alignment, making sure that you understand what the students want. And you do that by talking to them, which is what this entire campaign is about. It's not about going out and about and just getting in people's face. It's going out, talking to them, saying, hi, this is who I am. What do you think of this campus?
And this sort of relates to what you were just talking about. How well do you think WLUSU management is operating currently, and what do you think you could do better?
I think what I could do better is, one, bring wealth of experience to the organization. Like I said, I've got a significant amount of experience in the management level of the Students' Union, so I'm not going to have to spend a lot of time worrying about that or trying to figure out how a $13 million budget works. I know I've done it. I think that what can happen is making sure that students are firmly in place. That requires a lot of training, it requires a lot of focused effort, but I think that that's really what it comes down to. Is instead of sitting in a boardroom or an office and asking, why aren't the students interested in what we're doing? Why aren't they coming out? Why aren't they telling us what they think? Get out of that room and go talk to students. And I really think it's that simple. Management isn't doing that right now. And the easiest way to solve that is to just get out and talk to students. And it's amazing how quickly and easily students will talk to you. And you just go up to them and say, yeah, I'm just curious what you think of this campus.
How would the everyday student benefit from your presidency?
Well, I think that their student life on campus would get significantly easier, and I think that's true across both campuses. Instead of a student frustrated trying to get wireless, which I'm sure if we look at the laptops in the concourse right now, there's more than one frustrated with at the moment, they'd be able to do it. They'd be able to get online, they'd get their class notes, they'd log into My Learning Space and upload their paper. They would have more funds available to them. All of a sudden we'd be distributing all of our student board dollars. Very simple aspects like that. And I don't think any student's ever going to think, Matt Park did this for me. I'm perfectly fine with that. But I think students are going to be happy, and that's all that matters.
Okay. How do you feel about current student engagement with the Students' Union, if it can be improved?
Oh, it can be. I don't think there's any question about that. I think a perfect example is we spent about $50,000 on a market research survey, which told us, lo and behold, a massive amount of students don't appreciate the Students' Union. There's a severe branding issue is what it keeps getting referred to as, but I think it just again boils down to students don't see value for what they're getting from the Students' Union. They know they're paying for it, but students have real concerns about their academics. They want to know why class sizes are going up. They want to know why tuition dollars are going up. They want to know why they're having trouble getting into mandatory courses, or why tutorials have been cut in half or gotten rid of, or why labs are disappearing. And the Students' Union isn't taking a position on any of that. So I think that if you actually, going to be a broken record here, if you get down to the real concerns and say, you know what, it's going to be hard to lobby the university on all of these things, but that's our job. And students are going to be more appreciative of what they're getting out of it.
All right, and this is the last question. What is something about you that students might not know that you want to know?
There's a lot of stuff that they wouldn't know about me. I think that the biggest thing that can sometimes happen is people feel like I might not be that personable. Or that I'm just not interested. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Throughout this campaign, students aren't going to see me out dancing and singing. They're not going to see me out, basically making a fool of myself. That's just not my personality. But I couldn't be more interested in who and what they are, why they're here, and what they want to get out of this university. My passion may not be perfectly visible every time, but when we start talking about the issues, I think it'll really come across.
All right, okay, thank you very much.